professionally as a software engineer for 7 years. I jumped from software engineering into front-end leadership at Teleclinic, and then since exactly 1 year back, I got the opportunity to switch role to an engineering manager position. I like remote leadership, like I'm interested in management in general. If I have the time, I love to go snowboarding, but now, being a husband and a father, it's not so much leisure time anymore there. I also write a lot of Elixir and especially web development with a framework called Phoenix. So if you're interested in Erlang or the Erlang virtual machine, Beam, or Elixir, definitely hit me up. I'm super happy to talk about that. You can also follow me on Twitter, where I lately tend to only post about Elixir. So if you expect any other topics from me, then don't follow me on Twitter. So Teleclinic, what is that? That's Germany's leading telemedicine company. So telemedicine is e-health, and we build a platform where the doctor can treat patients in Germany. So we're the most affordable one, the most efficient one, and the largest one, and we striving to remain so. So the treatment is literally, anything from patient getting the appointment to getting the treatment to following up and prescriptions and all of that. I think e-health is really big in America for a longer time than over here. So this is maybe nothing new to you, but over here in Europe, in some countries, it's first now, that is really picking up steam. So I think in my team, between 5 to 10 engineers, and that's mostly what I also measure. So when you hear me talking about measuring the engineering team performance and also see some dashboards later, it's roughly between 5 to 10 engineers, depending on what projects we're working on and so on. However, some of the things that I'm involved in and my engineers are also overlapping with other teams. So there might be some metrics and some numbers that are actually measuring projects, developed by 20 to 30 engineers. So I think that was brief introduction to me and to what Teleclinic is. So with no further ado, I would just jump straight into it. So why measuring engineering teams? So for me, historically started with we had some initiatives that we wanted to take to improve certain areas in our team, mainly pull request time. So the pull request lead time, I remember. So we had a situation where pull request was open for a really long time, and they were not merged, and few engineers was engaging with them, and we saw it as an issue, and then we were like, okay, here is a couple of things that we can put in place to hopefully improve this. That paired up with that my team was about to grow and scale, to twofold. So increase it with basically twice the size. So I was like, okay, how can I make sure that the initiatives we take here now actually gonna have a real impact and a real effect? And also, how can I make sure that as I'm growing the team, the culture I built and the performance I built and together with my team, how can I make sure that we remain there on track? So that's like what sparked the whole idea. And then I started to educate myself and look into different ways of measuring engineering teams. And I will talk about that later on here. But if I just answer the question, why measuring engineering teams, from my experience, it's really about understanding where you are and getting like a team throughput index. Are we going backwards or are we going forward with our new initiatives? And also, as you grow in the team, as I said, I think it's really valuable to know that, okay, hey, we're adding on more team players, but we're actually remaining really strong on our performance, and we just continue to going forward. And having all these new people on board is just not like keeping us slower. It's we're remaining on track. And also crunching numbers, I think is just really fun and motivating, personally speaking. And I think having visual appealing dashboards and looking into the numbers and sharing the numbers can be really fun.
What's the fun in just doing work if you can't put points on the board, right? And see how stuff is trending.
I think so too. I really do. I think there is a scary side of being data driven because it's very honest. It can be very honest. But it's also, I think there is a very fun side, obviously, but also a very humbling side, you know, like if you open for measuring and you have a healthy relationship with that, I think it can be really beneficial.
I just wanted to jump in to, you know, just to emphasize those couple points there. I mean, new initiatives, new team growth, team change. How do you know whether you're going forward or backward? I mean, this seems to kind of so precisely describe the present moment. So
yeah, good to hear. Well, we all been there, I bet. So measurements, yeah. So what do you want to measure, right? So this was, you know, I had very little experience in this space. So quickly I found this well-known thing called DORA metrics. So the DORA metrics are developed by Google. It's a research that spanned over, I think, 5 or 7 years. And they came up with these key indicators here that anyone who's interested to measure engineering performance should do. So I think they studied like, you know, high performance teams, high performance companies, low performance companies and teams, and then, yeah, put everything together in a very comprehensive research. So there is these 4 things that really stands out. So it's the deployment frequency. So like how often do you actually put things on production? The lead time. So how long does it take from, you know, your first commit and until you deploy it to the end user? Change failure rate. So how often does our changes actually bring down the system? So here I modified it slightly for my own. Well, actually, I don't know. Sorry. What was that? Yeah. Okay, then I continue. So I modified the change failure rate slightly for me and my team. So I don't look at like the system being down completely. You know, I don't look at a DNS service failing, or I don't look like at a database going down, because the reality is what I'm building is mostly you know, product and feature changes. So like as a, you know, you build a new feature, you ship it, most likely the database will not go down, but could be that you have some regression or something go down for the end user. So I don't look at it as system failures, but I think the DORA metrics by definition do that actually. Then you have the mean time to recovery. So when you have these failures, like how long does it actually take you to recover from it? And you also have a clear understanding of what puts you into the bracket of being high performer versus low performer with your team. I think there is some shades of gray there as well. And there is also the elite performance bracket. I think you should definitely, if you decide to implement DORA, you should also get yourself familiarized with those classifications of performance. I think they can be very fun and also very motivating. And it's not that frightening as you might think. Like if you want to be on the elite performance level, sure, that takes something, right? Like I think mean time to recovery should be, you know, sub 1 hour. The lead time is like 1 day. But putting yourself into the high performance bracket is fairly reasonable thing to achieve. One thing also we should remember, I don't know if DORA teaches you this, but I learned it through the book Accelerate, where I actually learned about DORA metrics. So it's right here. You should definitely pick one up. I think there will be a new version this year coming out as well. You learn that speed equals quality. So you cannot have you know, a high velocity on your deployments and changes if your infrastructure don't have the quality to facilitate for that, and the other way around. And you also what I learned from Accelerate is how important it is to have a high quality of your IT department and how it directly translates into business you know, growth and business numbers. So, but I think that's a separate topic. I don't want to derail too much, but sure. It just goes to show that this is important matter and should be explored. So if you want to get into this, you know, of course, hit me up. I'm happy to talk about it, but otherwise, go get the book Accelerate. Definitely make sure to subscribe to the State of DevOps. So that's a yearly update, you know, regarding DORA that is released. And they basically make some changes to the research, but also show like, okay, so what is new for this year? What does it take this year to be a high performer with your team, or extreme performer? So really fun material that gets released once a year. So you should definitely subscribe to that. So how do I measure my team? Well, it starts with collecting data, right? So I have a couple of sources. At the moment, I'm actually going through a migration from Bitbucket with some of my repos to GitLab. So that means that the dashboards we will look at later, they are a bit compromised at the moment. It also means that I'm realizing that I don't need so many data sources anymore as I once did, which might also mean that, whatever setup you have, it could be that you only need, like, let's say you use GitLab and you want to start to use DORA metrics. Well, GitLab have actually a public API for that. So they would you just use the API, and you get all the DORA metrics for free, and you don't have to put together all these different sources and aggregate the data yourself, which I had to do when I originally started out. And I'm also a bit lucky now that most of my work goes through Jira. So this also comes with some easier setup for me. So I will show that later when I show my dashboard. So if you also use Jira for your project plannings, you might get away with an easier flow than I'm presenting here. But for me, still, it looks this way, that I have a couple of data sources. So Datadog, Bitbucket, and GitLab, and so on, or whatever data I want to report. I use the public APIs to report to these tools, like Datadog is an analytics tool, for example, and Jira you probably know, and GitLab and Bitbucket is repositories, or where I host my repositories. Then I have a Matillion, it's called, where I basically schedule some cron jobs, and it's syncing all the data from those sources, and it just runs periodically. And then from there, I transform the data and send it to our data warehouse, which is Snowflake. And then from Snowflake, it goes into Metabase, which is an analytics tool that gives me super BI powers, and I can create beautiful handcrafted dashboards. And that's that for now. The next step will be to, how do I do with my reports? Like at the moment, it's basically very manual work. I have to open up Metabase. I have to look at the numbers. I have to, basically do the whole reporting myself there. But it will be really fun to have like an automated way. So everything from Metabase then gets sent out, maybe, as an email or to Slack or whatever. So that's what I'm going to work on next, but I'm not there yet. So before we go into the dashboard, what does these data events look like? So I submit and request data almost exclusively as using REST APIs. So most of these modern tools also, of course, have SDK. So I have used a Python SDK before in some projects. I have used a TypeScript SDK as well. But most of the time, it's just HTTP calls. So everywhere you can make a HTTP call, you can basically, send your data and request the data. And it's always JSON to JSON, which also makes it very consistent and really easy to work with. So I just put two examples in here because I think if I should show, exactly all the calls I do for all my tools, it would be a really long presentation. But it just shows you, like here for Datadog, I have on my Bitbucket pipelines, I just use a curl, make a call to the public Datadog API every time I want to increase the deployment count for some of my front-end projects. I use an API key in the as a query param, so I use that for authorization. Same on Bitbucket, again, just a REST call, and that's how I get the data to Matillion. And there I use OAuth-based authentication, so just the access token in the header. So that's it. Like 99% of the time, it really just looks like this, and it makes it really. I think it just makes it very flexible, right? So like wherever you have a shell, wherever you can execute, make a HTTP call, or you have curl or whatever, you can really send and request data. So And yeah, the public APIs of all these modern tools are, of course, like super well documented. So it's just really easy to navigate through. Dashboard. So yeah, this is going to be the fun part, I guess. So how do I visualize the data? So I'm going to switch tab here. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So
sorry, Marcus, before
yes.
you go on to the eye candy, right, the data visualization, how often are you doing those polls? Is this kind of a weekly, before you take your daddy duty Fridays, you do this on Thursday nights, or is this once a month, or kind of what's the rhythm?
It's every day.
Every day. Sweet.
I don't do it manually. I basically do it, like I said, it's a scheduled job. So it just runs. So I only need to update it when, well, I should also not take all the creds here. I have a fantastic support from our BI department. So they are helping me with both Matillion and Snowflake. That's not really my domain. But no, anyways, basically run a scheduled job every day. So trying to get as accurate and fresh data as possible for my dashboard. Yeah, so also DORA metrics is one thing, and I think that's a really, really good start, both if you like just starting out, having trying to dip your toes into this, but also if you're like really professional and have a mature team that's been working for a long time. I think DORA metrics is probably the only thing you need. However, as I said, like I started this initiative because we wanted to bring down our pull request size. So I also measured that the pull request lead time, and maybe as a finding I did was that I think complementing the DORA metrics is also not a bad idea. So let's say your cycle time, which is part of the DORA metrics, let's say that goes up. So it takes like 10 days maybe for you to first commit until it lands on production. How do you find out where the bottleneck is? Yeah, so so that's why I think you should have more than just one data point if possible. Like the more data points you have, probably the better when you want to start investigating. But also don't have too many data points because you have to maintain it, and data that you don't use is useless. So I don't have so much going on here. Like I had the DORA metrics and then maybe 3 or 4 more things, but that's what I will show now. So pull request size. So that's how large is a pull request on average. So this is a great way if you want to understand why your pull request lead time goes up or down. Maybe that's also a good starting point to look at the size of your pull requests. So I look at the moment at the lines of code, and there I think when we perform the absolute best is probably like, I don't know, maybe between like 15 and 25 lines of code. So that works for me and my team. That's like kind of my baseline there now. And then I also put on most of these metrics, I have a trajectory of like, how do we perform last week versus now? And that helps me when I look at these numbers, or when the team look at it, you can see like, okay, what is the trajectory at the moment? Then we have the pull request lead time here to the right. So the average time for pull request from the time it's open until it's closed is roughly, as we can see right now, 15 hours. And I think context really matters. So I'm really happy that if you look right below, there is pull request lead time per project. Some projects is actually not in here anymore because they are now part of the migration. So that's what I meant before when, yeah, a little bit poor on data here at the moment, but I think for the presentation it's good enough. But as you can see here, we have one extreme outlier, and that's a good example of why context matters. So, sometimes I see that the pull request lead time is like over 100 hours, and then I can see, okay, which project, and then I know, okay, why did that happen? Well, it happened because we decided to actually have a batch release. We decided to have a big pull request that was reviewed by many people for a long period of time. So we decided that, and that's okay, like when you put context into things, it's totally fine that the pull request then is over 100 hours. It's not about like getting it down to 15 hours and staying there just because 15 looks beautiful, right? It's about actually making good work and using the numbers to make sure that you are doing a good job. But still, the features you're shipping should be the goal, you know. So,
sure.
So you have to remember that you can make exceptions, you can deviate, and if you know the context, it will help you to have a better relationship and more honest and truth-worthy relationship with these numbers, I think. Then you have pull request comments on average. So this I put in place because I think it can be a really good indicator to know whether engagement goes up or down in your pull requests. And if it would go to 0, that might be fine. Like that might just show that your team is sharing knowledge and helping each other in other ways, you know, like maybe pair programming or whatever. But I think, especially if you want to scale your team, this can be a really good time to, or a really good way to see how engagement is going over time, you know, and do you have to put some more effort in there? Like, do juniors get enough support and feedback as they probably need, you know, and so on. Then I have the pull request flow time, or pull request flow ratio, sorry. So that's just the last 24 hours, how many pull requests were open versus how many was closed. So I would ideally really like if the team, you know, opens and closes pull request within the same day, maybe maximum 2 days. So this is just a way for me to, without going into all these different places and all these different repositories and manually, you know, check the pull request buckets, I can just quickly, or the team can quickly also see it here on the dashboard. Then we have the pull request lead time. So that's same as above, but yeah, per project. And then lastly, on this pull request section here, I have time to merge. So that's basically the cycle time. Unfortunately, I can't show that because right now, like I said, I'm spoiled that I have most of my work go through Jira. That also makes my cycle time really easy to understand because Jira has a cycle time report. So I can just run that in Jira and I see the cycle time for all my tickets there. Okay. And I can't, you know, due to privacy reasons, I can't show you Jira.
And Marcus, just a quick context question. The other 4 modules, I can see that the source repo name graph is on a, you know, per repository basis. Mm-hmm. The other 4 are averaged across those 4 repos. Is that right? Or 5 repos?
Yes. That's correct. Yeah. So the pull request lead time per repo is the actual real hours it took for pull request to be open until it was closed. Yeah. Well, in total, it's the sum actually. So it's not per repo. It's per repo, but not per pull request. It's the sum. Yeah. Or maybe I changed it to average. I'm sorry there. It might be average right now. Actually, I think it is. Yeah. So it's not the sum. Yeah.
That pull request lead time is showing the average number of hours to merge the pull request per repository over the last 30 days. Is that true in the upper left there? Yeah.
Yes, I implemented a filter here as well. So I can actually filter for today, yesterday, last month, this month, and yeah. So, okay, so I think actually pull request lead time, the per repo is also average. Yeah, for that specific repository. Then go down to deployments. So deployments per day. This is the total amount, both including front-end and back-end projects. And then I have specifically just, so again, here I also have the trajectory, you know, you can see if it goes up or down. And then I have the front-end deployments, and then I have the back-end deployments. And then I have a link as well to Jira again, where you can see basically everything that we are working on that is documented on Jira. So that's a good way to, it's slowly becoming like my go-to place since we have most of the work on Jira, but back in the days that was not the case. So then it was really useful for me, you know, to just pull and aggregate all this data together.
So am I correct in assuming then that you're using kind of the releases feature in Jira and kind of tagging all of your tickets with the kind of release notes or when they get released. And so that's how you're kind of correlating this here.
So actually, it's a bit easier for me. Well, when you say correlating here, so I get this data into this dashboard, I think mostly from two places. So it's the deployments that happens, on CI and CD, I report it to Datadog, and then I put it in here. And then I also, from Matillion, I also make, I'm requesting data from Jira, and I also put that together in here. But in the Jira tool, when you're looking at the deployments there, the deployment frequency in Jira, because I use Bitbucket, which is also a Atlassian tool, it integrates very well. So they know exactly when I have been releasing with Bitbucket. But Jira is quite modern and, of course, also supports other registries. So, for example, you can use GitLab, and you can also pair up that with your Jira. So you can use the same Jira deployment frequency and get data from GitLab as well. Then I have just a graph here with on a weekly basis where I can see the deployment frequency, and that just helps me to again get a more digested version of whether we're going up or down. And especially like if you work on a 1 to 2 week sprint basis, it can also really help to understand how last sprint were performing, when it comes to deployment versus the existing sprints. Then test coverage is not here anymore, but I think that's a great way as well. You should, if you are working with, or if you are concerned about test coverage, I think you should also put it into your team engineering dashboard.
Is that based on unit test coverage or functional test coverage? And how do you measure, if it's functional, how do you measure that?
Yeah, so at the moment, I actually, as you can see, I don't measure it at all anymore, but it used to be based on unit tests. Okay. And we are also now ramping up our end-to-end tests. So we use Cypress for that, and they have great support for generating reports of test coverage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So that's only on the front-end side. That's actually where I've been mostly exploring the test coverage. Yeah. Then we have change failure. So again, this is not full-on system failures, but this is like, okay, we made a change here, we committed something, we shipped something, and now our users have some issues. So if I click on this, it also takes me straight into Jira, but I think that's a really neat interaction that I added here. So when you see this number, you can actually click on it, and then you can see in Jira exactly what was that about. And then I have the time to recovery as well. So here context matters as well. Like if you see 86 hours, and remember DORA says that if you sub 1 hour to be extreme performer or elite performer, like 86 hours doesn't sound good, right? But I know that we fixed this very fast. We just could not deploy it yet because of reasons, and we decided was totally fine decision to let it sit for some time, So context really matters again. And then I also put the bugs here. Oh, sorry.
Quick question, Marcus, on how you determine that a change failure occurred. I think I understood from our previous conversation that that's marked on the Jira bug ticket. Mm-hmm. Could you maybe speak to that?
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. Actually, that was one of the more interesting things that I wanted to bring up, and I forgot it. So it was really initially it was really hard for me to know when something was broken, and get that reported into this dashboard. So I had a really clunky setup there, and it was not so reliable. But then I just found out that what I can do, I can basically, if I create I mark it as hotfix, so it has the label. Well, it can work either way, but I decided if it has the name hotfix and also the priority of highest, then I will basically query that. So when I run my queries when I get all my data from Jira, then I can filter out those tickets in Metabase. So that's what I do. So this is nice because it saved me a lot of time. I get and we work mostly through Jira nowadays anyway, right? So we have that luxury. So why not just speed up the whole process here and get this feature with very little work and very little potential of numbers to go wrong. So the downside is, of course, that it requires a lot of discipline. Like, if a product owner or if an engineer creates a ticket and it has the highest priority, which have happened, then suddenly it's reported into my dashboard here, and that's a false positive, right? So you should be aware about that. But honestly, just like you make a product, you iterate on it, and I think this is a great starting place. And so far, so good. So not planning to change it anytime. And then bugs at the bottom. That's actually just any bug ticket that is created in Jira. So that's just a way for me to also get an overview of that when I'm looking at these numbers anyway, and then how long time it takes to resolve some of those bugs. But that's a bit tricky because you might report a bug and you might drag it out or drag it in, or I don't know, it might be super low priority and it's just in the sprint until the very last day, who knows. So I find that to be like semi-productive, to be honest. I might get rid of it in the future. We will see. So that's the dashboard. I probably should not spend too much time talking about Metabase because I'm not sure if you use it or planning to use it. But I think if whatever tool you're going to use to analyze and visualize your data at the end, what really helped for me was to have a tool that lets you, interact and drag and drop and put things together very fast, but also has the possibility to write raw SQL queries when you need to. So I had times where we worked on a project and we wanted to understand how the project was performing. And we basically just put together a dashboard for that specific project with some raw SQL queries, getting some very domain-specific data from that project, and then we could look into the performance and troubleshoot it. And then when we were done and happy, we just removed the dashboard afterwards. Sure. So I think that's also a good learning, that have a tool that is fast and productive. But also allows you to really go down to the weeds if necessary.
Okay. And then
yes.
Forgive me if I'm asking a question about organizational size or whatever that doesn't really make sense. If this is a dashboard for your squad, is there another layer that kind of shows your squad as opposed to 3 other peers, or have you kind of intentionally avoided the don't measure horses versus cows versus pigs thing, right? Because some applications are inherently much more complex than others, right? Or others are, kind of more internally focused and are necessarily going to have much lower change rates, and that's okay. You know what I mean?
Totally. So we have metrics on software engineering global scale in the company as well, but not as detailed as this metrics here. However, I think the interest for DORA is really picking up at Teleclinic, but also in other companies. So I'm pretty certain that every single team at some point will be measured at very least by the DORA metrics. And then I think, why should you not compare? It depends on what you're going to do with the comparison. If you're going to start to hold people accountable or whatever, or use it in performance reviews, well, then I think you're off to a very dangerous territory. But if you want to use it to get a holistic understanding of what how your IT department is performing, and what your throughput is, and stop talking from just gut feelings, but actually having some real numbers, then I am all for it.
Here.
And I would
data to the opinion party, right?
Yeah, and I would talk about this topic later in my slides, and you will better see how my reasoning there is. But yeah, also in my dashboard, I had, like I said, there is some. So for the most part, it's 5 to 10 engineers in my team that are part of this, and some projects are indeed overlapping with other teams, and they might be bigger or smaller. So when that data shows up in my dashboard, I have to be aware about that because I cannot really impact it so much since it's another team, and it might mean that I have to customize some queries here. Like I might have, okay, two engineers that works in a project that belongs to another team for a short period of time, but I still want to have that data in here because it's two of my engineers that work there. So then I basically query maybe pull request where the order is the name of that engineer, and then I get the data in here, but I also know that I cannot really impact the pull request lead time too much of that project because it actually belongs to another team, So it's definitely, it's a very quite dynamic and flexible, and again, context really matters here for me. That's what I learned. So if there's no more questions on the dashboard side, I would just continue my slides here. So action, how do you use the data? So maybe this touches a little bit on the question I just had. I think it really gives you a great insight of the health of your team and your projects. So you can identify issues early on or trends early on. You can use it for planning projects. So I think cycle time is great for that. You combine that together with your sprint estimations, and then I think you started to get a really good sense about how long a future project might take to build. It helps you to also stay on track. So like I said before, like having this indicator, are you going backwards or forwards? And I think it can be a really, or I know it can be really motivating to talk about the numbers and to share the numbers. And it also makes your engineering work transparent in your organization. So I think in my personal experience, like very often when numbers are flying around, it's like KPIs that are tied to products or business. And here is a chance for us, to also share some numbers for how we do as an engineering team. So I have this template put together. I can send it to Adam later, or hit me up on anywhere and I will happy to share it with you. So I do this once a month, sometimes 2 times a month. I can recommend you to check the water before you dive in, right? So I would like to share it once a week, but I still feel that it's like a bit of a learning process. Like I had to get better in analyzing the data. I have to get better in understanding how engineers are responding to it and are impacted by it and so on. So I decided originally once a month, and now I think I'm up to like roughly 2 times a month. So what I do is I have this template, I copy paste it every time, and then I write, okay, what's the pull request lead time for this month? What was it last month? If I need to elaborate because there is some anomalies here or like really extreme numbers in any direction, then I also elaborate on it. So I say, for example, okay, we have a change failure rate of 20%. This was the features that went down. This is why they went down. This is when we identified it, how we fixed it, how long time it took to actually release it. So it's a way to really elaborate and share and answer questions and concerns. And it also makes, like I said, the engineering work transparent when you share this with your department or with your company, and it can give them it can give stakeholders a way to also praise your team, right? So your team is doing fantastic. They just continuously shipping small chunks of features, iterating on the products, having small pull requests. Well, pull request lead time is 12 hours. Here is a way for you to actually praise that and share some feedback to the team. So I really like that aspect of it, where you can build collaboration and basically put yourself on the map and your engineering team on the map together with other departments. And yeah, I do this format, title, what metric, the numbers, and then a small description, so non or technical people can understand what it's all about. And you can also see, like, if you read the description here, you see that most of these examples here are also just underlining that speed equals quality thing that we talked about before. Like fixing issues fast means that your infrastructure supports quick deployments. Short lifetime of PRs is only possible if the PR is small, leads to smaller increments and higher quality review. So it's just finding its foundation in that speed equals quality. That's what I really believe in.
Yeah, I love that the thumbnail descriptions are right there. You don't have to take the title, go Google it, put it into context. Oh yeah, I want deployment frequency to go up. Okay, now I got it. Now I got to flip back, right? It's just right there in the template.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And you have to, like, most likely, so I share this on a department base. So I don't share it for the whole company yet. I might start to do that. But I mean, the department is also, changing in size, and new people are joining and so on. So I think it's a good way. Put some description in there, and then it's just super clear for everybody, whether you're new or have been in the company for a long time.
Sure.
Onboarding. So this is a big one. I think this is, for me, this was the most, this was the hardest thing. Like I think first of all, because where I'm coming from, like as a software engineer, I never liked the idea of anyone measuring me and then like using that for any sort of like performance measurement or review. So measuring engineers on an individual level, I think you can do it, but it's probably extremely tricky. I would also not recommend to start there. I would probably rather measure the whole team or the throughput of the team. So I had that, in the back of my head. And I was super enthusiastic about my dashboard. I really believed in DORA. I believed in measuring these initiatives that we started. So I wanted the team to be as positive to this tool as I am, and they should also use it. Like, I'm not going to use this dashboard if no one else have access to it or want to use it either. Or at the very least, I want to give them access to it. If they don't use it, it's up to them, of course. But so yeah, it was a big touchy topic, and how should I do it? So I don't know how you're gonna do it, but I can only tell what worked for me. So keep in mind, nobody likes to be measured. Have empathy. Explain why you're measuring something and what you're measuring. Give ownership to it. Like I used to have much more like on the lines of code. I also had like the total diff, like removed lines, added lines, and other things. And then the team said, well, that seems not so useful for XYZ reasons. So then I'm like, well, let's just take it away then. You prove me that we don't need it. So invite them, make them owners of it, give them access to it. I think that's really the way, and iterate on it, build it together. And also remind your team that all this data, or most of it, might already exist. So you want to know how long time it's going to take to build a project. Well, you have some gut feeling, or you worked a long time with the team, so you have a strong gut feeling. You have sprint estimations, so the sprint estimations are already there. That's data. You set it every single sprint. You look back, you see if you improved. Can you now have higher sprint estimations? Can you have lower? So why not like use cycle time as well, right? There might be that other stakeholders or other people in your department or in your company throughout the organization, they might have other tools already to look at this. Like everyone knows probably how many deployments you do per month. That's not hard to look up. So a lot of this data already exists. Also remind your team about that. Now you're taking ownership of it. You're saying, hey, we aggregating the data and we make it very beneficial, and we make it more useful than just having the data randomly somewhere. So that's my strategy, and it really worked for me and my team. I'm still quite new to this whole topic, of course. I have a lot more things to learn. So yeah, if you have any ideas or want to talk about it, just reach out. Apart from that, if you have any questions, we'll be happy now to answer it.